In the grim darkness of the far future, there is no greater illusion than absolute control. The mighty believe their fortresses are truly impenetrable to external threats. Lord General Vance spoke of defiant survival, his voice echoing across the plaza. Yet the shadows themselves had already breached his most secure command sanctum seamlessly. His grand speech faltered unexpectedly. A chilling realization struck him with the force of a thunderbolt, freezing the very air within his lungs completely. The elite guards, sworn to protect his life, moved in perfect, unsettling unison. They removed their helms, discarding their assumed identities without a single hesitation. Beneath the polished armor, they wore the exact same face. A collective, mocking smile spread across the silent formation, revealing the depth of their grand deception. The Hydra had awakened from its slumber. Their true allegiance remained obscured, hidden beneath layers of falsehoods and the shifting scales of a multi-headed serpent. A planetary stronghold fell into ruin instantly, conquered without firing a single shot. The battle was decisively won before the first alarm ever dared to sound. Such is the terrifying warfare of the unspeakable. They do not merely breach walls. They infiltrate the minds and the unwavering loyalties of their chosen targets. Every digital footprint was systematically expunged from the Imperial records. The operatives silenced the outpost, ensuring no desperate pleas for salvation would ever reach the stars. From the dense shadows emerged a towering, shifting entity. His imposing silhouette flickered like a phantom, bending the dim light around his constantly changing armored form. The nameless warriors knelt in absolute reverence before their elusive lord. In his enigmatic presence, individual identities dissolved into the vast, interconnected web of their legion. He wielded the pale spear, a weapon of ancient, unknown origin. Its chilling hum resonated through the silent corridors, promising an elegant purge of all resistance. A lone servo skull documented the soundless collapse of the planetary defense. Its optical sensors recorded nothing but ghosts vanishing seamlessly back into the cold, uncaring void. The mechanical witness was swiftly given the Emperor's peace. No mechanical eyes or mortal minds are permitted to comprehend the true operational parameters of this legion. I am Alpharius, the whispering shadows echo. It is both a solemn vow and a profound lie, repeating endlessly across the fractured expanse of the galaxy. Welcome to the sanctum of oaths, my faithful acolytes. The dark truths I am about to unveil are strictly classified, hidden deliberately from the fragile public. This encrypted parchment holds the fragmented records of the 20th Legion. Their very existence is a paradox, wrapped entirely in layers of impenetrable, systemic deceit. These are the heavily redacted chronicles of the Alpha Legion. They are the unseen dagger, poised silently within the colossal shadow of our beloved God Emperor. To study their methods is to invite sheer madness. Every confirmed tactical maneuver is merely a distraction from their true, deeply devastating strategic objectives. Let us delve into the treacherous history of the Hydra. Listen closely, for the shadows themselves might be recording our every whispered word of heresy. This ancient manuscript confirms the harrowing truth of the Alpha Legion. They are the undeniable masters of a terrifying, unseen war across the endless void. The 20th Legion operates with an unparalleled, terrifying scale. Their immense network weaves silently through every formidable imperial institution, manipulating vital planetary systems efficiently. This meticulous record reveals their philosophy. They strike deeply, not with brutal force, but by systematically unraveling the very fabric of our defensive infrastructure. Few scholars dare to categorize their immense threat accurately. They are a multi-headed beast, striking vital targets long before the first battle cry sounds. Entire worlds have fallen perfectly into ruin without realizing the invasion had already occurred. Their glorious victories leave absolutely no physical trace behind them. The origins of their illustrious Primarch remain shrouded in absolute obscurity. Alpharius emerged into the chaotic galaxy as a brilliant enigma of unparalleled martial prowess. During the Great Crusade, his legion perfected the flawless art of leaving no trace. They executed their complex tactical maneuvers with chilling, calculated perfection. Their early conquests were glorious triumphs of superior intellect. They utilized advanced infiltration protocols, dismantling towering enemy fortresses effortlessly from the inside out. They never sought the grand glory of direct confrontation. Their legendary victories were defined entirely by the profound silence of their systematically defeated enemies. Every tactical engagement was an intricate puzzle solved flawlessly. The Alpha Legion operated as a singular, highly optimized organism of devastating, calculated warfare. Rumors whisper of a deeply hidden twin, Omegon. The existence of two identical commanding entities doubled their strategic unpredictability across the fractured celestial empire. Their flawlessly synchronized strike teams bypassed massive energy shields entirely. They silenced critical planetary communications before the defensive garrisons could even mobilize their forces. Utilizing the labyrinthine venting shafts, they bypassed heavily fortified Imperial choke points. Their unseen advancement resembled a creeping digital virus corrupting a massive structural network. With precise structural sabotage, they ensured that heavily armed bastions collapsed under their own immense weight. It was a glorious era of unmatched strategic brilliance. They assimilated countless strategic assets seamlessly into the burgeoning Imperium. Their hidden operations saved trillions of Imperial lives by averting catastrophic, drawn-out planetary sieges. Their unparalleled infiltration capabilities became the stuff of legendary military doctrine. No other Astartes legion could replicate their terrifyingly efficient methods of psychological warfare. They were the Emperor's most deeply hidden blade, a supremely effective instrument designed to surgically dismantle massive celestial empires from the shadows flawlessly. The intricate Hydra symbol represented their profound operational redundancy. If one head was severed, two more advanced operative units seamlessly replaced it within moments. They meticulously orchestrated planetary compliance without deploying massive siege engines. Their brilliant systemic manipulation was a terrifying testament to their absolute martial superiority. This golden age of unseen triumphs solidified their legendary status. Yet, this absolute reliance on deception planted the dark seeds of a catastrophic future. Consider the precise mechanics of their silent warfare. A standard deployment involves intricate digital subversion long before any armored boots hit the actual planetary surface. Their operative protocols bypass standard Imperial encryptions flawlessly. Sophisticated logic engines unravel the binary codes, systematically disabling heavy automated defensive turrets without triggering proximity alarms. Observe the methodical preparation of their weaponry. He firmly slots a specialized, magnetically silenced magazine into his master-crafted bolt gun, locking the firing mechanism perfectly. The internal servo motors of his Mark IV ceramite power armor hum with a muted, subsonic frequency, completely masking the colossal physical weight of the towering warrior. These localized dampening fields are highly classified technological marvels. They absorb ambient sound waves, rendering the heavy mechanical footsteps of the Adeptus Astartes completely imperceptible. Unsuspecting overseers monitor the primary grids, completely unaware of the creeping anomaly. Corrupted data packets overwrite their vital sensory feeds with perfectly synchronized, looping false telemetry. Floating servo skulls patrol the darkened corridors on programmed loops. Their optical lenses are subtly hijacked, blinding the mechanical watchman to the unfolding structural sabotage beneath them. A crackling power sword severs the main atmospheric regulation conduit precisely. The sudden pressure drop is masterfully disguised as a routine, scheduled mechanical maintenance fluctuation. Within the isolated communication hubs, artificial silence reigns supreme. The astropathic relays are physically severed, trapping the doomed planetary garrison in an inescapable, soundless void. They communicate exclusively through encrypted, tight-beam Vox transmissions. Short bursts of hypercompressed static convey incredibly complex, multi-layered tactical directives across the compromised enemy facility. This systemic realism defines their entire grim ideology. The Hydra leaves nothing to random chance, orchestrating every minute mechanical failure to ensure absolute structural collapse. These meticulously recorded schematics illustrate their profound mastery over Imperial infrastructure. They turned the very defensive architecture of the Imperium against its most fiercely loyal defenders. Every malfunctioning plasma vent and sudden power grid failure is deliberately orchestrated. The operatives weaponize the complex logistical systems of a sprawling metropolis perfectly. The Martian tech priests chant their binary litanies in absolute vain. The corrupted machine spirits refuse to awaken, stubbornly denying them the holy spark of defensive ignition. Armed with hyper-toxic venom rounds and specialized auspex scramblers, the silent legionnaires stalk their prey through the suffocating darkness of the compromised subterranean manufacturing sectors. They wear the armor colors of friendly reinforcements flawlessly. This visual mimicry causes disastrous hesitations among the defending forces during the most critical tactical engagements. A silenced bolt round pierces the central cogitator core flawlessly. The localized command structure shatters into complete disarray, severed entirely from the wider Imperial network. The glowing power field of a master-crafted blade hums deeply. It slices through heavily reinforced plasteel bulkheads without triggering the underlying atomic thermal alarm sensors. As the artificial atmosphere slowly vents into the freezing vacuum, the remaining Imperial defenders are quietly suffocated, their frantic vox pleas swallowed by absolute static. Thus, the operational phase is flawlessly concluded without a single drop of unsanctioned retaliation. However, this clinical perfection only heralded a much darker, impending tragedy. For centuries, their flawless operations secured the expanding borders of humanity. The Hydra was hailed silently as the most incredibly effective instrument of total Imperial dominance. The intricate digital and physical webs woven by their operatives remained absolutely undetected by the highly vigilant inquisitions of our vast, expanding celestial empire. Primarch Alpharius stood as a towering paragon of supreme intellect. His highly unorthodox warfare methodologies elevated the entire legion to an unprecedented pinnacle of martial glory. The twin operatives, perfectly synchronized, represented the absolute zenith of Astartes' capability. They were the apex predators lurking unseen within the bright shadows of the Great Crusade. However, this undisputed supremacy was merely a terrifying prologue. A catastrophic ideological shift was subtly festering deep within the secretive, shifting ranks of the 20th Legion. The grim darkness of the Horus heresy shattered the galaxy entirely. Suddenly, the brilliant light of the Astronomicon flickered, plunging billions into absolute, terrifying, unending cosmic isolation. Inquisitor Kalen desperately scanned the corrupted data streams for answers. The emergency klaxons blared incessantly as the heavily fortified planetary defenses began to systematically turn against themselves. Blinking crimson runes on the massive cogitator screens heralded an impossible betrayal. The highly trusted internal security algorithms actively purged the loyalist defensive grids without warning. Emerging from the suffocating smoke, former allies revealed their true allegiance flawlessly. The painted Hydra insignia shimmered maliciously under the violently strobing emergency tactical hazard lights. Lord General Vance watched in sheer, paralyzed horror as his command bunker locked down. The heavy plasteel blast doors sealed them inside a dark, suffocating metal tomb. A highly classified exterminatus order burned slowly on the ruined desk. The devastating authority of the Inquisition meant absolutely nothing against this meticulously planned, systemic, internal collapse. Kalen drew his crackling power sword with trembling hands. The blue energy field illuminated the dense, swirling metallic dust filling the deeply compromised underground command sanctum. Heavy, rhythmic footsteps echoed ominously through the darkened ventilation shafts. The silent legionnaires descended upon the terrified Imperial defenders with chilling, perfectly calculated, emotionless, lethal precision. Sigma 1 raised his master-crafted bolt gun smoothly towards the trembling general. The specialized silencer hissed quietly, delivering the Emperor's peace without producing a single disruptive acoustic signature. The commanding officer collapsed heavily into a spreading pool of dark, unidentifiable fluid. His lifeless eyes stared blankly at the heavily corrupted tactical displays flickering above him. Surrounded by towering, shifting silhouettes, the desperate Inquisitor fired his bolt pistol blindly. The explosive rounds merely sparked harmlessly against their highly advanced, constantly adapting ceramite plating. A shattered Astartes helm rolled slowly across the cold metallic floor. The grim symbol of the many-headed serpent stared mockingly at the collapsing remnants of imperial authority. High above the raging subterranean conflict, Primarch Alpharius observed the total structural failure. His shifting, scaled armor perfectly mirrored the chaotic, violently strobing crimson warning illumination. The Inquisitor's glowing blade was effortlessly shattered by a massive armored gauntlet. Every defensive protocol failed simultaneously, leaving the heavily fortified bastion completely vulnerable to unseen predators. The formidable Echo 9 outpost was violently plunged into eternal darkness. The harrowing conflict escalated rapidly into a terrifying, devastating war of endless shadows and profound systemic betrayals. Within the suffocating confines of the shattered command deck, the Alpha Legion initiated their terrifying, beautifully choreographed symphony of absolute suppression. Desperate loyalists returned frantic, uncoordinated fire. Their volatile explosive munitions detonated harmlessly against the relentless, shifting tide of dark emerald ceramite. Like phantoms materialized from thick, choking mechanical smog, the silent executioners enveloped the terrified remaining defenders with stunning, ruthless tactical fluidity. Each precise, silenced volley delivered the Emperor's peace instantly. They left merely crumpled, lifeless husks, draped across the sparking, ruined cogitator banks. Every frantic melee counterattack was systematically dismantled. The legionnaires moved with a terrifying, pre-calculated grace, turning frantic desperation into a morbidly elegant dance. The Inquisitor raised his sanctified pistol, only to find the weapon violently malfunctioning. Their extensive mechanical sabotage extended directly to personal armaments perfectly. Surrounded completely by identical, towering monoliths of deceit, he realized the agonizing truth. His formidable bastion was merely an intricately constructed, inescapable cage. They offered absolutely no arrogant monologues, nor any passionate battle cries. Their grim, uncompromising silence was far more psychologically devastating than any roared threat. A final, catastrophic surge of corrupted digital energy shattered the surrounding cogitator arrays entirely. The explosive shock wave threw the ruined Inquisitor aggressively backward. From an elevated vantage point, their elusive Primarch observed the beautiful slaughter. He orchestrated the unfolding chaos like a masterful composer of profound ruin. The tactical envelopment was an undeniable masterpiece of systemic warfare. Loyal Imperial formations were meticulously isolated, divided, and systematically silenced within the creeping darkness. Shattered weapons of righteous authority lay abandoned across the cold, metallic decking. They were pathetic, discarded remnants of a profoundly failed, arrogant planetary defense. The operatives seamlessly secured every critical extraction vector. They ensured absolutely no terrified survivors could ever escape to whisper tales of this horrific, unseen purge. As the massive plasteel bulkheads slammed shut, eternal darkness claimed the ruined command center completely. The final pockets of frantic resistance were efficiently, permanently extinguished. The broken Inquisitor gazed upward through the suffocating gloom. A towering, shifting silhouette slowly descended, emanating an aura of absolute, crushing, celestial majesty. The majestic armor scales cascaded with mesmerizing, hypnotic hues of emerald and sapphire. The enigmatic warlord paused over the defeated agent of the false throne. He leveled the crackling tip of his alien spear directly at the mortal's heaving chest. The ancient weapon vibrated with a terrifying, contained, atomic fury. Dozens of identical, towering warriors formed a perfect, silent perimeter. They stood as motionless, watchful statues amidst the smoldering ruins of absolute imperial authority. A final, desperate attempt to activate a distress beacon was casually denied. The crushing inevitability of their total failure finally consumed the Inquisitor's fractured mind. The immediate engagement concluded with horrifying, absolute finality. Yet, this localized purge was merely a microscopic fraction of their grand, terrifying, cosmic design. The once mighty Imperial communications relay now lay in absolute, smoldering ruin. Silence descended upon the devastated sector, broken only by the crackle of dying machinery. Inquisitor Kalen stared up at the towering, shifting entity before him. He finally understood the harrowing truth of his catastrophic, systemic failure perfectly. The enigmatic Primarch simply turned his armored back on the broken agent. The Hydra rarely concerns itself with the pathetic lamentations of utterly defeated mortals. Like dark mist dissipating before the dawn, the heavily armored operatives began to vanish. They retreated seamlessly into the labyrinthine depths of the compromised facility. Every digital footprint was masterfully scrubbed from the local cogitator banks. The invading legion left behind an impenetrable void of agonizing, terrifying imperial silence. Those left alive were intentionally spared to bear witness to the profound devastation. Their shattered minds would forever broadcast the terrifying legend of the Hydra. We must pause and ask ourselves, my devoted acolytes, what was the true underlying purpose of this beautifully orchestrated, deeply terrifying martial spectacle? The tragic collapse of the planetary defense forces seemed like a glorious victory for the arch-traitor. Yet, profound inconsistencies plague these highly classified historical records. Were they truly serving the ruinous powers of the warp? Or is this devastating betrayal merely the outer layer of a vastly more complex deception? Some radical scholars propose a terrifying, deeply heretical theory. They suggest the 20th Legion never actually abandoned their sacred oaths to the distant God Emperor. Consider the paradoxical nature of their cosmic crusade. By ruthlessly purging the weak, did they secretly fortify the broader Imperium against far greater imminent threats? The profound mystery deepens when we contemplate the twin Primarchs, Alpharius and Omegon, two identical halves of a singular, impossibly complex, deeply fragmented operational soul. Their actions often directly contradict their stated allegiances. They weave a labyrinthine tapestry of profound falsehoods, confounding both holy inquisitors and dark demonic lords alike. A ghostly fleet drifts silently through the cold, uncaring void. They wear the twisted colors of chaos, yet strike with the clinical precision of loyalists. Beneath the horrifying, mutated iconography of the ruinous powers, hidden purity seals sometimes remain entirely intact. It is an illogical, deeply confusing paradox of faith. This immense structural ambiguity is their greatest weapon. They are an incomprehensible riddle, existing simultaneously as the Emperor's most treacherous foes and highly devoted servants. Logic itself violently fractures when attempting to analyze their prolonged campaign. Every piece of confirmed intelligence is deliberately countered by an equally valid, contradictory truth. Why would these ruthless architects of ruin occasionally bestow profound honor upon fallen loyalist commanders? It is a chilling anomaly that defies all standard imperial doctrine. They leave behind cryptic, encoded messages within the very ashes of their absolute destruction. It is an endless, agonizing game of shadows played across millennia. The harrowing truth is that we may never comprehend their ultimate objective. The Hydra remains an absolute, terrifying enigma, coiled tightly around the galaxy's throat. Their venomous legacy is permanently etched into the very foundations of the Celestial Empire. The invisible scars of their betrayal throb with an agonizing, eternal resonance. Entire sectors remain paralyzed by profound systemic paranoia. Loyal imperial governors suspect their most trusted advisors, fearing the unseen strike of the multifaceted serpent constantly. The tragic remnants of their silent wars litter the galaxy. A cracked power sword or a silenced outpost serve as chilling monuments to their profound devastation. Yet some fragmented records suggest a terrifying state of internal decay. Without the unifying vision of their Primarch, the Hydra's many heads have grown fiercely independent. Operating from the deepest, uncharted voids, isolated war bands execute deeply conflicting, paradoxical campaigns. The grand, unified strategy has violently shattered into 1,000 jagged, terrifying shards. This profound fragmentation makes them infinitely more dangerous and wildly unpredictable. A rogue operative might perfectly dismantle a planetary defense merely to test its structural integrity. The Holy Inquisition chases endless, agonizing phantoms across the stars. Every desperately hunted clue perfectly leads to another masterfully crafted, psychologically devastating layer of systemic deception. Inquisitors break their own fragile minds trying to untangle the impossible web. Their desperate purges often inadvertently fulfill the highly classified, terrifying objectives of the hidden legion. Even the most advanced logic engines fail completely to predict their next calculated maneuver. The mechanical spirits weep in binary, overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of paradoxes. They are an insidious, creeping plague upon the very concept of imperial certainty. Trust itself has been masterfully weaponized, turning our vast empire against its own shadow. Rumors persist of a shattered Primarch, a master of lies finally undone by his own labyrinth. Yet, even his alleged demise might be a glorious, perfect fabrication. If the great serpent is truly decapitated, its severed bodies continue to writhe with horrifying, autonomous malice. The endless war of shadows rages on entirely unabated. We stand upon a crumbling precipice of forbidden, deeply corrosive knowledge. To stare too long into this particular abyss is to invite the Hydra into your mind. My devoted acolytes, the harrowing truths I have unveiled are a heavy, toxic burden. They are a profound curse, meticulously wrapped in the fragile guise of enlightenment. The terrifying magnitude of their endless infiltration operations defies all rational mortal comprehension. We are surrounded entirely by ghosts wearing the hollowed faces of our closest allies. It is time to seal these cursed, heavily redacted chronicles once more. The heavy burden of this terrible knowledge must be carefully buried beneath thick, protective dust. I feel the oppressive, unseen gaze of the shadows pressing intensely upon my back. The dark corners of this ancient vault suddenly seem profoundly, dangerously alive today. Our solemn vigil over these fragmented, terrifying histories concludes here. The fragile parchment must be carefully returned to the silent, unyielding embrace of the deep subterranean archives. Let the heavy iron clasps lock away the terrifying legend of the 20th Legion. May the God Emperor shield our fragile minds from their profound, deeply systemic corruption. The flickering light of truth is finally extinguished. We must return to the comforting, blissful ignorance of the dark before the Hydra truly awakens to consume us. The most terrifying realization is not the sheer, overwhelming power of our hidden enemies. It is the profoundly agonizing fragility of our own deeply cherished foundational beliefs. When an entire planetary defense crumbles seamlessly from within, we are forced to violently confront an undeniable, chilling paradox regarding our highly vaunted, supposedly impenetrable celestial security. Every towering fortress and heavily armed bastion remains a potential, meticulously constructed trap. Faith itself becomes a volatile, deeply compromised weapon wielded expertly by unseen, manipulative hands. To study the 20th Legion is to invite absolute, crushing madness. We must constantly question the fundamental loyalties of those standing immediately beside us in the trenches. The most dangerous adversary is rarely a roaring brute charging recklessly across open fields. It is the trusted friend, whispering carefully constructed falsehoods directly into your ears. They are the haunting shadows of the intricate cosmic spiderweb. The Hydra waits patiently, coiled silently around the very beating heart of our vast, heavily fortified Imperium. We must fiercely guard our minds against this creeping, unseen, ideological rot. Vigilance is the only fragile shield protecting humanity from total, catastrophic internal subversion and ruin. Trust absolutely no one unconditionally, my faithful acolytes. The dark serpent wears 1,000 familiar faces, and its venom perfectly mimics the intoxicating taste of pure salvation. May the divine light guide us safely through this endless, treacherous labyrinth of shifting shadows and profound systemic deceit. Imperator Gloria in excelsis terra. If you survive this grim transmission from the dark archives, hit like, share the truth, and subscribe to the channel for more deeply classified lore.